Welcome to the Super Fantastic Exchange, where we have inspired conversations with leaders, thinkers, and motivators. And today is a special day for me because I get to bring to you somebody that I have looked up to for quite some time, and really was an inspiring spark in my career, that really changed the trajectory of the different ways I was thinking and doing things. So I just can't wait to bring to you and share with you somebody that's so special to me, Tiffany Stanley. Y'all give it up for Tiffany. How are you
Thanks.
doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks, Gary. That means a lot. I'm really honored to be here. So thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thank you, Tiffany, so much. Well, Tiffany, I want to give you a chance to share a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm a leader in the real estate business. Been doing this for really, really long time. That's how, Gary and I got connected and have been doing real estate. Specifically, I spent almost 28 years in property management. Recently have shifted my career a little bit to asset management. One of the things that I realized later on in my career is that, I think we've always thought about career paths as being a ladder, right? It was always
Mm.
talked about like it's like the ladder, and property management's very ladder-esque, right? Kind of go straight up the ladder. Later on in my life, and something I encourage my daughters, I've got 3 grown daughters, and something I encourage the people I work with is stop thinking about it like a ladder and start thinking about it like a jungle gym.
Ooh.
Because sometimes you need to take a step over here. And I was really nervous to make this leap from property management to asset management. And so I said, let me get comfortable with it. And I forced myself to think about it that way. It's like, it's a resume builder. It's a way to look at, real estate from a different viewpoint and a different filter. And it certainly has had its challenges. I've been doing it for a little over a year now. And it's really, even late in my career, it's really helped me stay, focused and driven, and challenged me in ways I didn't think I'd be challenged. Right. And so love what I do, love real estate, and love the people I work with over the years, including yourself. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. And I was going to say, with it, Tiffany, you are one of the cleverest people that I know, just able to quickly think on your feet. And just your example of thinking of your career as not a ladder, but a jungle gym. Again, one of the most brilliant kind of conceptually ways of thinking about your career. Because I think a lot of us think of it
Yeah.
as linear, but if you think of it as a little different, and I love the way your jungle gym visual is just like,
And I think the inspiration around that is really coming from this newer generation. Like,
hmm
I think this younger generation naturally thinks about it more like that. Gone are the days where like staying loyal in a company where you work for 10, 15, 20 years, like that's not the environment anymore. And
yeah.
and these younger, employees are looking at things differently. Like, how can I fill my bucket and also
Mm.
grow my resume in a different way. And so I think the inspiration really comes from kind of how they're looking at the world as lots of different opportunities to do lots of different things. So that's really kind of what inspired me to kind of think about it from that standpoint.
Yeah, it's a smart move, and I like the way you're thinking and adapting to that. So, well, Tiffany, I love to connect with inspiring leaders, and I love to peek behind the curtain to find out what inspires these inspiring leaders. And so I reached out to you and I asked you, what are a couple of things that inspire you? You came back with really two neat points that I can't wait to get to. And the first one is creating a work environment where people can thrive. So
Mhm.
what does that mean to you, and why does just creating that work environment, why does that inspire you?
Yeah, so this really started quite a few years ago as I started to think about and I got exposed to and I think, Gary, this book really well, Simon Sinek's book,
Mm.
Finding the Why, right? Start with the why. That led me to say, okay, well, from a business perspective, we look at, what is our why from a business perspective, but what is my personal why? Like, how do I
Mhm.
connect with that? And so finding my own why and really spending some time and understanding like what is it that inspires me? What fills my bucket? Where do I get my energy from? Led me down a path where I realized that my what inspires me and what I'm also really great at which is typically where people find kind of their mojo is like both what am I great at and what do I love doing? And you connect those two things, and that's where, you tend to thrive. For me, it really is, how do I work on creating an environment for other people to achieve their goals, right?
Mm,
So in order for my team members and the people that I work with, even those that maybe I don't directly work with, but how do I create an environment where they can thrive? So where they can meet their personal and professional goals, right? Where they can utilize their natural strengths.
mm,
To me, if you ask me like what are words that like denote a great work environment, so for me the word safety comes into play, like a safe environment. And what I mean by that is safe in, I can take risks, I
mm.
can make mistakes, and I'm not going to be penalized for that, right? I'm going to learn from it, I'm going to grow. My supervisor and the people around me are going to allow me to stretch myself and maybe take some risks and make some mistakes and learn. And so for me, it's a safe environment to do that in. It's an environment that, another word that comes to mind is challenging, right?
Mm.
Like there's so many work environments where you hear people say, gosh, it's such a grind. All we do is come in and we just grind it out every day. And there's a certain amount of that grind that actually should be in a work environment because it challenges people. And,
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than being in an environment that's boring and you just do the same thing every day, right? It's like you got to be challenged. You got to have a little bit of that push. It's why so many of us, I think, in property management got sucked in because it's chaos and it's crazy and it's challenging, and then we never left because it's like this constant drive to like go fix the next problem. So it really was like, how do I contribute and build this environment so that all these people who have different goals, different personal goals, they come from different backgrounds, they have different professional goals, but how do you create an environment where all those people can thrive? And so that's what creates inspiration for me, is constantly finding opportunities and ways to build an environment where people can do that.
Oof. And I love that. There's so many things that you shared that we can unpack with that. And what you talked about was the environment, and you talked about it being challenging, of course, and safe. And I love those two words. I mean, safety for me kind of deals with trust. I think that's a huge one. And another book that we could probably talk about, Five Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a great book that talks about those things. But I agree with you. I think building that environment includes the safety slash trust and the challenge that keeps them interested, keeps them moving forward. I agree with you. I think there does need to be some sort of grind in a work
Mhm.
environment. Otherwise, you get bored, and that's where they start veering off looking for the next challenge.
Right.
But going back to one of the things that you initially talked about was where you're combining your passion and the things that you're good at. And when you're able to combine those two things into something that is you, man, you become unstoppable. And that's when you're
Yeah.
climbing all over the jungle gym.
Yeah.
And I think that's so brilliant. I love all the things that you shared, and there's so much to unpack with
Yeah.
that. But I think that's really clever. Tiffany, the second thing that you talked about that really inspires you is team building.
Mhm.
So let us what does that mean to you, team building, and how does the act of team building inspire you?
Yeah, so you touched on it already. One of the things I'm super passionate about is Patrick Lencioni's book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team. I got exposed to that years ago. I had a great mentor and somebody I worked with who was also inspired by and rolled out kind of that book and that process to me. I was part of an amazing team that got to work through some of the processes that the five dysfunctions of a team lays out. And I think something that you mentioned in the environment, which ties into like the first layer of five dysfunctions, which is building trust, right?
Mhm.
So I have seen both my teams that I've been on, as well as being able to help other teams. I've been able to facilitate and help other teams build this. And so when I get to take part in helping a team come together, and strengthen themselves as a team and become highly effective, again, that's inspiration for me. It's my bucket filler. But it really begins with trust, right? And we know this, like having trust in a work environment, having trust within a team is so critical. But I think, being vulnerable, being able to see each other as human beings, and that's where that trust is developed, right? Like
Yeah.
sharing kind of how you grew up and how you see the world, because that's how you grew up, and that's how you grew up, maybe even in your career, is some of the early foundational pieces of your career. And so sharing all those and getting to a level of trust with people in team building is so important. But I think the next step in the 5 dysfunctions is maybe even one of the more critical steps, which is being able to have conflict, right? And I think both in my personal life and my professional life, like I'm one of those people that's really comfortable with conflict. And the reason I'm comfortable with conflict is because I see it differently than a lot of people. A lot of people see conflict as being a bad thing. I see conflict as being an opportunity. Being able to sit at a table with somebody who disagrees with me, sees it from a different standpoint, knowing that they can push back on me. I have trust with them to know that it's not about me. It's not about me personally. It's like, hey, I want you to see it from my viewpoint, and let's dig into this and share. That to me is really awesome conflict. And when you get to that point with somebody or a team of people who can all put it out there on the table and talk about the things that are tough to talk about, and at the end of it, everybody is like, wow, we came away with something much greater than we would have if just one person was out, talking about this thing or doing this thing. So team building to me, and why I think for me, why it is such an inspiration, is because I love people. I love working with people, collaborating with people, and I love pushing and stretching myself and other people in a way that they didn't think they were comfortable with, and walk away being like, that was awesome. I know so much more about this person. I've grown in my relationship with this person, and I want this person to be a part of my life forever. That can happen through that process. So, team building, again, I think you can accomplish so much more with a team of great people, because we all bring such unique things to the table, that for me, it's really about how do you utilize the people within your groups? How do you build these great teams? Because you're going to accomplish so much more with a highly effective team than you would ever with a group of people that didn't connect that way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so good. And in full transparency, I've had the benefit of watching you build an incredible executive team and have those. And I've been in meetings in which there's been that trust, been that vulnerability, and I've seen the conflict. And anybody kind of an outsider looking in would be like, "Hey, wait a second, but it's that trust that you built, and that vulnerability and authenticity that you built with your executive team, that they were able to have that conflict and really, like you said, dig into that conversation. Some people may call it conflict. You're calling it conversation. You're calling it digging in and really kind of getting perspective and results and everything. That is so valuable. And I've seen the results of what you have done in the team building and creating work environments where people can thrive. I've been a result of it, and it's just absolutely incredible. Tiffany, I want to thank you so much. We're right here at the end of our time. Before we close, I want to give you a chance to share a closing thought with us.
Sure. Yeah. And thanks again, Gary, for having me. This has been amazing. And just, anytime I get to spend with you is always awesome. So thank you. I guess from a closing thought standpoint, I think, I guess I would say for those listening, like, always continue to open up your mind to learning. Like, doesn't matter how far you get in a career, how far you get down a path. I am kind of constantly stretching myself and learning. And I think, my shift a little bit in my career over the last couple of years has taught me that don't get comfortable. Push yourself, and both personally, and I've gone through some things personally where I'm stretching myself in those areas too. Like, get out of your comfort zone. And you see all these quips about, like, getting out of your comfort zone and all the benefits from that. And there's truth to all those things. But, like, I think the idea of being able to say, okay, here I am where do I need to go to next? How do I need to stretch myself? So really open yourself up to learning new things, stretch yourself in ways you never thought you could. And no matter where you're at in age or career or life, like don't ever give up learning, and stretching yourself and challenging yourself to be different, better all the time. And the other thing that I would say in closing is take care of each other. Everybody's going through things in their life and stretching themselves in different ways, and check in with people frequently. Find a way to be able to be a support to people. Everybody needs more people in their lives that care about them and support them. So check in with people regularly, take care of them, and find a way to give back.
So good. So many nuggets of wisdom in there. Stretch, learn, stay uncomfortable, check in with people, be good to each other, climb that jungle gym. Tiffany, this has been an incredible conversation. It's always just an honor to connect with you and learn from you every opportunity. So thank you again. Guys, thank you for joining us today on Super Fantastic Exchange. Remember, create your super fantastic, keep inspiring others, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank y'all.